Good to talk to you. And I got chills like listening to it because he was the best. And He painted that picture that day. I remember watching that game and the impact it had on that season. Michigan obviously went to split a national championship. They're honoring that team this weekend. And I don't know if it'll be that big, but having both teams in the top 10 is pretty amazing. Part of just absolutely loaded day of college football that we're going to get. And I don't know if I'm alone, but I know I'm not alone. But Keith Jackson will always be my favorite announcer, and because of reasons like that, he missed a beat on that clip.
It's just absolutely spectacular, and you are not alone. There are many, many people that are on that train with you. I'm right there with you as well. So we've got 3 matchups involving undefeated teams. We've got 6 matchups involving top 25 teams. Bill, this has been I think it's been a really interesting and a little bit different football season than we've had in recent years. We're basically at the halfway point. When you look at this college football season, how do you describe it?
So far, it's stuck to the script a little bit. I mean, like last weekend, for example, everybody in the top 10 won. You had some upsets here and there. You've had good stories like Kansas. I think James Madison's one of the best stories of the year, quite frankly. They first-year FBS team getting into the top 25 and not blinking against anybody. And that's why this weekend is so interesting to me, Richard, because we're going to have some movement finally. We're going to see if Tennessee can finally beat Alabama. We're going to see if Michigan is for real. We're going to see Clemson go down to Florida State. Florida State's not ranked, but that's not an easy game. We're going to see Oklahoma State and TCU. I love weekends like this because – and it just happens to be my favorite month is October, and just to have a weekend like that is truly phenomenal.
It's the 3rd Saturday in October, and this year it feels like it's living up to its billing. Tennessee upsetting Alabama it's a sexy trend. It's something a lot of people are talking about. Gives me pause a little bit because when people start talking about Alabama being dethroned, Alabama tends to not get dethroned. When you look at this matchup between the Vols and the Crimson Tide, what stands out for you? And are you on the bandwagon of, Tennessee not only can but actually will win this game?
They can, and on paper with that offense, they should be able to make it fun. I know that fan base has been itching for this one for years. I mean, when you lose 15 in a row to a rival, you're at home. But what gives me pause is the same thing that gives you pause. I'm sure Nick Saban has used that all week. I was down there in 16 when they blew up Tennessee with Jalen Hurts. I was down there in 18 when they did it again with Tua. The two possible large overreactions from Saturday, one would be Alabama losing because we love pronouncing them dead. You saw that last week. We thought they might lose. And then 2 would be if Alabama goes in there and just blows them up again, because we know what the overreactions will be at Tennessee and that fan base when you've been starving for something that long and you don't get it.
Bill, what do you make of Ole Miss at this point? They're sitting there at 6-0. They're in the top 10. The schedule has not been overly difficult, but we were talking about this earlier. And okay, it's Auburn this week, and then it's a trip to LSU, and then it's a trip to A&M. You really could get deep into the schedule and still be asking the question of what is Ole Miss. So what do you make of this team?
I love the way they run the football. I love that they've kind of flown under the radar as a 6-0 team. I mean, obviously they had the escape against the Kentucky game, and the defense came through in crunch time. I think what Lane Kiffin's done is really phenomenal, protecting a transfer quarterback like Jackson Dart, who in turn had his biggest game last week, over 400 yards. So just that ability to run the football, and their defense gets after it. So, I mean, if you look at their schedule, if they can take care of business this week and take care of business, I believe I don't have it in front of me. They're at LSU next weekend, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
They could set up to have a pretty magical night in November when Alabama has to play the next big road game, because they still have to go to LSU and then Ole Miss. That night in Ole Miss and Oxford could be truly special if it comes to that.
Speaking of teams that I feel like kind of fly under the radar, and I don't think it's just this year, I think Mike Gundy's Oklahoma State team every year until we get to like the last week of the regular season and they're kind of in the the race for a Big 12 title. I just feel like they fly under the radar and they just keep winning. It's a really fun matchup in Fort Worth this week. Number 8 Oklahoma State undefeated at 5-0. Number 13 TCU, first year for Sonny Dykes there. An impressive win for them at Kansas last week. What do you see here?
Yeah, it could be fun. It could be a lot of fun with that. A team that certainly value, and then they're an underdog this week, and they've got a good decision maker in Spencer Sanders, a guy that doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, can beat you with his feet. Their offense has answered every challenge. I think they're the Big 12's best bet to get in the college football playoff right now. And it's kind of like what I said about Lane Kiffin. For everything that Mike Gundy does and says, and we remember in the press conferences, they've flown under the radar a little bit. Being able to replace Jim Knowles as the defensive coordinator and still playing pretty good defense, too. That's a fun game because Max Duggan and TCU and Sonny Dykes and everything they're doing there, very good team as well. It's a shame it has to go up against Alabama, Tennessee, because I think fewer people are going to watch that and truly appreciate how good that game could be.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front. Hey, this is one that smells fishy. You look Southern Cal at Utah. Utah coming off the loss to UCLA. They lost the season opener at Florida, and yet Utah is a favorite. Rice-Eccles Stadium, tough place to play. What are the odds makers looking at here?
Man, I fell for it, whatever it is, because I'm taking USC. I think I watched UCLA carve up Utah a little bit. Granted, it was on the road. I get Utah is going to be desperate in this spot, right? And, I think USC and Caleb Williams and that team, they're just cut out to go win this. Lincoln Riley, this is another huge road game for them. I like their chances. So I took USC. I still think, along with UCLA, they've really made the Pac-12 interesting. The Pac-12, Richard, they have a big game every week. Every week. And that's how you stay in the playoff conversation.
You're absolutely right. And it's fun to have that part of the country relevant, or at least somewhat relevant at the halfway point of the season, because it's been a while since we've seen that. Bill, I got to ask you about Mississippi State. They're playing really good football, back-to-back home wins against Texas A&M and Arkansas. They head to Lexington this week. The news of Will Levis likely playing brought that line down from around a touchdown to about 4 today. We've tried to break this down as objectively as possible, and I just feel like Mississippi State is better than Kentucky in every facet of the game. Am I crazy?
No. I mean, Levis adds to it, obviously, but I was just kind of going through this in my head, and I probably should have researched this before I came on. Is there another state teams that are 11-1 right now? I don't think so. I mean, this is a really good time for you guys down there because Will Rogers is playing high-level football. The defense has been better. I was impressed with how they've knocked out, I know they had the blip against LSU, but, I mean, they've got something there. And they've got something that if they take care of business this week, I know every storyline in the SEC somewhat revolves around Alabama, but there you go again. I mean, if Mississippi State can take care of their business this week, and I think they will, you go to their game against Alabama. And all of these games are just riveting to me. So it's a good thing because I think we get into late October, we're going to have a lot of fun.
Bill, if I told you could only watch one game this weekend, after you were done crying because of your sadness, because I know you want to soak it all in, what's the one game that you would pick among all the others that you would absolutely say that's the one I'm watching?
Well, it brings our conversation full circle, and as much as I would want to watch Penn State and Michigan, I've seen that one, and I think we're going to get a 28-24 game. I am really interested to see what happens in Knoxville this weekend. Yeah, just because of the nature of those programs, everything you're seeing on Twitter, ranging from a shirtless guy rapping to pictures from the past. I don't look like that with my shirt off, but I've watched that far too many times. And, I think it's going to be a lot of fun in Knoxville, win or lose for Tennessee.
It's going to be a great weekend. Always enjoy the conversations. Bill, thanks for your time this afternoon.